Hey guys, I've been thinking about doing some lessons on the diminished scale on this channel for a while, but I've been on vacation and then I had some gigs and I had to prepare for them. And anyway, I'm back and here is lesson number 1 on the diminished scale. A lot of people will try to tell you that there are 2 different diminished scales. There is half whole and whole half. I personally do not see it that way. To me, there's only one diminished scale, and there's 2 different modes that you can get out of it. Let me draw it on paper, and I'll explain what I mean. I'm going to draw the diminished scale as if it were going just up one string. So let's do this like this. So the diminished scale is made up of this pattern of half step, whole step, half step, whole step, all the way up. And then the 2 different diminished scales, or what I would consider the 2 different modes of the diminished scale, are where you start it on the first one or the second one. The first one is where people call it half whole, and the second one, if you start on this, like if the bass is playing this note, you will call it whole half. So those are when people say half whole and whole half, that's what they're talking about. So there are a couple points that I want to make about this scale, because it's a really interesting scale and it has lots of interesting applications if you understand what it's all about. Okay, the first point I want to make is that patterns are really, really cool and work very well with this scale. And here's the reason. Look at this, just this much. See that pattern? Now, what if we go over a little? Now look at that pattern, it's the exact same. And that one, and so on until you get back to the octave, and it's these patterns that repeat. And same if I do a smaller one, just those 2, like the half step clumps. That's another pattern that repeats. Or you could take a bigger one even, like this much repeats. So there are a lot of repeating structures in this scale. So imagine if you were to play some lick with these notes, and then you could play it with these notes, and then you could play the same thing going up the scale, and it sounds really cool because of that symmetrical structure of the scale. And that's why people call it the, symmetrical diminished scale. Okay, so that's point number 1. It's great for patterns. Point number 2 has a lot of great applications for the guitar. So if I take any one note in this scale and I go up a minor third, which is 3 half steps, so 1, 2, 3, I always get another scale tone. From this one I get this, and from this one I get this. And it works all the way up the scale. That rule holds true. So I don't know if this is a big deal for other instruments, especially like horns, but on guitar, what this means is if I learn one scale shape, like if I learn one shape on the neck, and I move my hand, just slide it up 3 frets, and play the exact same scale shape, I'm going to have the exact same scale. So for this reason, I only really need to know one scale shape, like one mode shape on the guitar, to cover the entire fretboard with this scale. And another point, a similar point, is how many different diminished scales are there? Well, let's say I moved it all up. I move these 2 notes up here, that's another one, that's 2. I move them to start here, that's 3. And then I move them again, and I'm back where I started. So there are only 1, 2, 3. There are 3 different diminished scales. So it has this repeating nature that cuts down the number of fingerings we have to learn on the guitar. Like with the major scale and its modes, we need like 5 different shapes to get up the fretboard. And with this scale, we only have to learn 1. I do play some stuff that doesn't fit in my 1 scale shape, but this 1 scale shape is all you really need, and it's how I got started. So check it out. Here it is. Okay, had anyone given me this fingering that is on the screen right now, it would have saved me, like, seriously, I think 2 years of confusion and frustration with the diminished scale, because there's so many different fingerings posted online, and I even tried to look for this one, like, to make this video, and I could not find it. And I was kind of like confused and lost as far as actually playing the diminished scale with all of the stuff online for such a long time until I found this one. Actually, a teacher gave it to me, and it totally worked. Like, it clicked for me, and yeah, so I was looking for it, and I couldn't even find it posted when I wanted to find it, and I knew what I was looking for, so you can imagine me not knowing what I was looking for, trying to find it. It was totally impossible. So check this one out. This is the most straightforward one to me. It still sucks. I'll just be honest, this scale is not easy. You're going to have to play it like hundreds of times and, learn lots of patterns through it. But it is possible. It's, put the work in and you'll have it. So here is my favorite diminished scale shape. And like I said, this is the only one you need to get all the way up the neck. You don't have to learn any more than this because it repeats every 3 frets. Now that we've gone over some of the theory and how to think of the diminished scale on the fretboard, how it moves in minor thirds to cover the neck with just 1 scale shape, I'm going to show you guys what I was doing in the intro of this video. I was playing over Autumn Leaves, and I was using the diminished scale all over the place. What I was doing with it is, I would say, almost definitely the most common application of diminished scale in jazz, which is that I was substituting it for the altered scale. I'm not going to go through every note and show you how this works. I think you should do it, but I don't feel like doing it because it's kind of painstaking. But if you go through it, you're going to find that the diminished scale, the half whole, so you start with the half step. The half whole diminished scale is the exact same as altered, except for the diminished scale has a natural 13th, and the altered scale has a flat 13th. So the altered scale is a little bit darker sounding, and it doesn't lend itself to patterns quite as well as the diminished scale does. So the first chord of Autumn Leaves is C minor, and I'm not doing anything special on that chord, just playing C Dorian. And then the next chord, which is F, F7, is where I'm playing this diminished scale. So you kind of have to learn how it looks on the fretboard, but to get you started, like the shape that I gave you in the earlier part of the video, you can start it here on the 7th fret on B. So that's the scale. And once you learn it, you can kind of see how it runs over this F7 shape. And some of that, like here's an example pattern for a pattern that I might play. Stuff like that. If you want somewhere to find more patterns, two of my favorite guitar players to get patterns from for Diminished are Joe Pass and Mike Stern. I think those are two excellent diminished scale users. I know I stole a bunch of stuff from them, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, moving on with the tune. You have the two major 7 chords, B flat and E flat. Not playing diminished there. I'm sure there are ways, but this video is just kind of an intro to diminished scale, so I'm just going to use it over the dominant chords. And then you have A minor 7 flat 5 to D7. And over D7 I'm doing the exact same thing. Same thing as I was doing over F. The interesting thing is F and D are actually a minor third apart. So if you think about it, the diminished scale that you play over the F and the one that you play over the D have the exact same notes. So you don't even really have to move it. You can play the exact same thing, same lick. If you just, you have to learn to resolve the D7 one to G and the F7 one to B flat. But the diminished scale themselves are the exact same fingering. You could even play them both in the same position. It's just the F7 one, you have to kind of see it with F7, and the D7 one, you have to see it with there's those two chords in that position. So you kind of have to learn to see the same scale shape from different angles to cover the fretboard. Okay, and then I get to G minor, and I was doing a kind of clever little thing. It's really common to make that G minor a G dominant right at the end of the form because it leads back to the C minor really nicely. So what I was doing is I was making the G minor a G7 by raising the third, and then I was playing diminished scale over that. So that one would sound like and then that goes straight back to the top of the form. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I know it's getting kind of long, so I will save the other stuff for future videos. There is tons more stuff to talk about with diminished scale. This is seriously the tip of the iceberg. So stay tuned for future videos. And if you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe, and then you'll get a little notification when those future videos do come out. And I appreciate all of you guys' comments and emails and likes. I have fun responding to emails and comments, so please keep leaving them. And if you're interested in doing your first free Skype trial lesson, please send me an email. Thanks, and I will see you guys next time.